All right, I hope you're all doing good today. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet book and the 911 rescue. What we have is we have the author on the phone. It goes by L. Yusuf. L. Yusuf, you would like to say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm El Yusuf.
Okay, and what we're talking about is introducing you to the people and what the book is and any goals that you might have with the production of a book like this. Because again, it seems like a children's book. So just like to hear anything that you'd like to bring to everybody that might be interested in purchasing your book for the construction of their child's mind or for their own personal mind.
Okay, great. Well, first, let me just say thank you, Lex, for inviting me on to talk about this book.
No problem. Do me a favor, just a little bit louder. As loud as
Okay,
you can comfortably be.
Okay. How's this? Like that?
That's wonderful.
Okay. So just thanks for inviting me on. The book is for children, but also for adults. My goal with this book is to put everybody in a position who's an Israelite or who wants to associate with us to be able to read and write and speak the original Hebrew, which is called Phoenician Hebrew. So if you're speaking Hebrew, what you would call it is Ibaryath, means the Hebrew language. So one of the important things that you'll benefit from, you and your family, if you learn the Paleo-Hebrew, is the following, and I'll start with the scripture. So let me get my Bible real quick.
Can I interject real quick?
Sure.
Can you give any kind of explanation between the Paleo-Hebrew and the Phoenician Hebrew? There will be some listeners that understand Phoenicia is another nation. It is not bloodline connected to the Hebrew people. Is there any kind of information that you could have to separate those thoughts in people's minds? Because again, they might hear that and think negative.
Okay, sure. Well, the Hebrew language, the ancient Hebrew language, is the language of creation. We see that in the book of Jubilees in chapter 25, I think, verse 12, or chapter 12, verse 25, one or the other. But that's the language of creation. So when the Most High created everything, that was the language that he was speaking. The earliest known script known by scholars today is the Phoenician. Okay, so the Hebrew is written in the Phoenician script, and that's how it's explained by the scholars. From the time of Adam's creation up until the Tower of Babel, when the languages were split, there was one language, which was the Hebrew. So when the Most High split the languages, we continue with the Hebrew. And then, of course, Abraham was given the Hebrew in the book of Jubilees, and he was taught to read and write and understand. And so he passed it on. So that's kind of like the history of it. So Hebrew is actually a mispronunciation or a corruption of Eber. So hopefully that answers your question. That's the way the scholars explain it.
Okay. So for people that have been online and they see that Phoenicians are credited with modern writing systems, let me say this. When you look at Paleo-Hebrew or Paleo anything, it is what you call in pictorial forms or symbolic forms. When you here they are crediting one race or one nation or one nationality with writing systems is because of the growth in where letters are formed to depict what's being drawn and moving away from the pictograph into the writing system. So the Phoenicians are credited with writing system, period. And then each nation that they came in contact with, their writing system is then added to the Phoenician, or the Phoenician name is then added to the writing system to depict when they had images for writing versus when they had letters for writing.
That's what they allege. So I would agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. The pictograph is similar to a hieroglyph.
Right.
But it's my personal opinion that it's our ancestors who used the script.
Certainly, I agree. It's just that we're dealing with people that renamed everything. That's all.
Right, right.
You said I interrupted. You were going to grab a scripture.
Well, let me make this other point before we do that. So our ancestors were using the Phoenician script that we're talking about all the way up until Babylonian captivity. When we went into captivity, there was an influence of the Chaldee or the Babylonian language, the scripts. So that's where you got the Aramaic. So in the modern Hebrew, which has its origins in the Babylonian exile, what you're going to see is the Aramaic script or block script. And it's a mixture of the Paleo-Hebrew script, but with some foreign sounds. And of course, they mixed in the names of their gods and stuff like that, so on and so forth. So there are several layers that you have to peel back, starting from today, if you want to get back to the ancient Hebrew that the scriptures were originally written in. So, for example, Moses and all of the pre-captivity Bible writers, they wrote their books, their manuscripts in ancient Phoenician Paleo-Hebrew. But the key thing to remember is that Paleo is just an era, a time period. So there's what's called an early or an ancient Phoenician Hebrew. There's the Paleo or middle era, and then there's the late, okay? Followed by the Aramaic, which those changes came during Babylonian captivity.
Great.
So that, okay. So now I'll go into the scripture.
By all means.
Okay. So let's look at Psalm 78, verses 5 through 6. And I'm reading out of the Sefer Bible. So it reads, "For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a Torah in Yasharal, which he commanded our forefathers that they should make them known to their children." Okay, they should make them known to their children, that the generations to come might know them, even the children which were born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in a higher, their power, etc., etc. So here we see in the scripture that we are commanded to make the scriptures known to our children. And one of the things I'm going to talk about as we proceed in this conversation is the difference between the Western way of seeing the world, the Greek, versus our ancestors' way of seeing the world, the ancient Hebrew. And depending on your paradigm and your culture, you're going to translate, or the Westerners translate in a way that's completely detached from reality. And I'm going to explain that as we go.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. So this is the key thing, the most important thing that you have to know when reading, speaking, and translating and transliterating the ancient Hebrew is this. Our ancestors saw the world in a concrete way, meaning that we were firmly established in reality. Well, what does that mean? Reality is things that we can experienced through the senses. So, for example, I see you, I smell the food, I taste the fruit, I can touch the tree, right? So each of the five senses, that's how we experience the world. That's reality, okay? And so our writing and our speaking reflected that. Now, when you look at the Greeks, it's something totally different. Greeks look at the world, or the Westerners. Now, when I talk Western, I'm not talking about the people of who we would categorize as black or Moors who lived in Europe. I'm not talking about the indigenous Europeans. I'm talking about the other ones. Okay, the way they see the world is through philosophy, through theory. Okay, these are things, or metaphysics. So these are things that you cannot experience with your five senses. Okay, so for example, when we read in the scripture about things that say anger, okay, or here's a good one, praise. Okay, if you take that word praise in the scriptures, the Greeks are going to translate it as meaning fame and renown. But you can't see, feel, touch, smell, or taste fame or renown, right? They're totally detached from reality. They exist in your mind. Okay, and the word itself, let me look at my notes here. I wanted to make a point about the word abstract. So this Greek abstract way of thinking. Abstract comes from the Latin, which means detached from reality, exist in your mind. So you can see that these are two very different ways of seeing the world. So when we look at a word like praise in the scriptures, as I mentioned, praise, according to a Greek or a Westerner, they're going to translate that as fame or renown. Okay, but when you look at our ancestors, when they wrote that in the scripture, what they did was describe something according to what they see and to what they saw, and here's what they saw. When you look at the words, this is a component. Well, what we're going to do right now is a Hebrew word study, and this is what unlocks the hidden meaning of the scriptures when you learn how to do this, and this is what 911 Ibaryath Rescue allows you to do. It'll give you all the tools and information that you need to do to unlock the hidden meaning behind certain verses by unlocking the words. So, for example, praise, the first letter in the word is going to be ha. It's a man with his arms held up toward the sky, and he's looking up at something spectacular, something that's amazing. Okay. The next letter is la. The letter following that is la. La is symbolized by a shepherd's staff. A shepherd's staff is used to guide the flock wherever the shepherd wants it to go. Okay. So now, when you know that our people had a knowledge of the stars, right? They could travel using the stars as a map, as a guide. What we know is that praise, according to our ancient ancestors, meant the North Star, right? That the traveler looks at to find his way on a journey. Okay, so that's completely different from fame and renown. So what that means, if I'm looking at the North Star to find my way on a journey, what it means in ancient Hebrew is that we keep the commandments, right? We Israelites, we keep the commandments and we turn to the Most High for direction and guidance in our life. That's what praise is. So when we praise, it's a function of doing, right? We do. It's action. Things you can see, right? I can see you, what you're doing, if you're keeping the commandments or not. Okay. Whereas if you're a Greek, it's fame, renown. Those are things that they don't exist in reality, only in the mind. Is that clear?
Sure, Sure. I think most of the viewers remember the teachings from Ed, and Ed covered a lot of this, explaining that as two different people groups, we have different things on the inside, and um, I think he covered an interesting perspective of it. Um, but the idea of theory versus tangible substance really shows through the actions that we've seen over history that we call despicable. Although right now our focus is on Greek this or Greek that, when people say the West, nobody thinks the black people. So I don't think that's actually necessary to say, respectfully. So when we say the West and we look at the atrocities of the West, we can see that there is more in the theory of, genocide versus the horror and shock and reality of genocide, because we hear about how many acts of genocide have been committed by the people that are classified Europeans over history. And even though we live in the middle of it, it still doesn't give us quite the grasp of these actions.
Right, and they justify it through their theories and through their
Thank
beliefs.
you. That is the best way to fucking finish that one going sentence, because it is theoretical bullshit, or you can call it Luciferian poetry, that would make a human exterminate man and other humans to make way for fallen angels that have utterly no respect for mankind, period.
Exactly. They're totally functioning outside of reality, and that is the fact. I remember when I was a kid in school. I remember teachers back in the day when I was coming up. They would say things to destroy your self-esteem, like,
Well,
for example,
I
like,
don't.
you don't understand the concept.
I
Okay.
have to argue with that.
Mm.
What you're saying is very, very classic view of it. Let me be the rebel.
Okay.
And when I say this, it's on your comment of reality. I believe what they're doing is they're taking psychoses and other mental problems and making them what we call mainstream, so that you are comfortable with somebody having an outbreak or an outburst in front of you.
I agree with you.
So in a greater aspect, what they're doing is they're making crazy the
The
norm.
new normal. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with you. So when someone, if a teacher ever tells your child, or if a teacher ever told you, like they told me, that I didn't understand some concept, you should know that that is not normal. Okay, first of all, we do understand concepts because it was Abraham who taught the Egyptians mathematics, etc. We just don't confuse the two. We understand that concepts and philosophies are things that exist in your mind, right? We don't confuse those with things that exist in the real world. That's what they do.
Let me interrupt here.
Yeah.
I think people that are viewing should understand this is why you don't use every vegetable in soup.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you don't eat every kind of meat.
Mm-hmm.
Only some things belong together. And when you far reach into your mind for these fantasies to make them tangible reality, especially when you have the power to bring them to a mainstream conversation in a society, this is the downfall of the society.
Yeah,
Because
I agree with
you've
you. I
openly
agree.
agreed there's nowhere I would like to, because I have control, there's nowhere I would like to go further.
Mm-hmm.
Positive, in the positive lane.
Yeah, I agree. agree with you 100%.
Soon.
Let's give the people an example from the scriptures. Is that okay with you?
That's always okay.
So this is an example of something that's concrete. It's going to sound simple, but it's worth noting. So this scripture is Psalms 103, verse 8. Let me check it. I think it's verse 8. Yeah, verse 8. Okay. So Ahia is merciful and gracious, slow to anger,
103
and
and what?
plenteous in mercy.
Excuse me, 103 and what?
Psalms 103, verse
8.
8. Yeah, well, if you got it, can you read it?
No, I'm eating a popsicle.
Okay, well, I'm going to read it then.
Sorry.
103, verse 8. Yeah. Ahia is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and plenteous in mercy. So anger, you can't touch anger, right? You cannot feel it. You can't taste it. You can't hear it. Did I name 5? What did I miss? You can't see it, right? Gracious, okay? Those are things that you can't feel. You can't experience with your senses, okay? So these are examples of things that are not tangible or intangible. So the issue comes from this. Where did they get these things from? Okay, because in the original language, it's got to be things that were all tangible. So let's just look at one of them. Let's look at anger. Okay, so everybody knows what anger is in English. So in the ancient Hebrew, what the anger is what you see, right? I can look at you and I can tell you're angry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for example, you can look at a person's nose, right?
Right.
If the nostrils begin to flare, you know, it begins to get wide,
Mm-hmm.
and the person is breathing heavy and hard,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's anger.
Or they're running a race.
Yeah, that's anger. So our people would look at that.
1 second.
So, yeah, okay.
Tangible.
Oh, they put the dirty voice, people. Ladies and gentlemen, the dirty voice.
Tangible.
Tangible, perceptible, perceivable, perceptible by touch. It means you can touch it. Your shoes are tangible. Your refrigerator is tangible. Your car keys are tangible. Your thoughts are not tangible. Your fart is not tangible. Your saliva is tangible. Your pee-pee is tangible. Your voice is not tangible without equipment. With equipment, you can manipulate your voice so that one goes in between the waves, right? Okay.
Tangible.
So now let me just make the last statement regarding that. So when the scripture says that the Most High is slow to anger, what are we seeing, or what did our ancient ancestors see? They saw a person who was slow. It took a long time, or it took a whole lot to make his nostrils flare and to make him breathe hard, right? So we saw the expression, okay? That's how we dealt with the world. Now that's reality, okay? So you can see there's a huge difference in paradigm, huge difference. So when we read the scriptures, we actually would benefit greatly by knowing what's really there. Especially because praise, when just that one word we looked at, praise is really keeping the commandments and looking to the Most High for guidance. Is not being famous and or being renowned for some quality. So if you want to praise the Most High, what you should do is teach your children and teach yourself the commandments, and then develop the habit through practice of keeping them. So the Hebrew language, the ancient Phoenician Paleo-Hebrew, as we put it into the 911 Ibaryath rescue book, is going to help you do that. It's going to make it easy for you to be able to understand what's being said. You won't even need the Strongs for the Hebrew scriptures written before captivity. When you learn everything in that book, you don't need the Strongs. The Strongs is just something that will complement what you know.
Right.
So this will liberate you from Strongs, and at least as far as the up into the captivity, up into the Babylonian captivity. If you learn this stuff, you can do Hebrew word studies, and you'll know exactly what our ancestors intended to write. But you have to know the paradigm that we just talked about. You've got to master that. For some people, it's simple, but for other people, it's like no one has ever presented this to them before.
Right. Well, that's good, because that leaves a great opening for you. And this is an excellent presentation. How about we take a second and show everybody how they can acquire your book? Now, they have seen that they can go on Amazon and the book is $40. So, you've told me that if I go to We Got Next, WeGotNex.com, that we can find the book. Now, if everybody looks on screen, you see how it's typed in WeGotNex.com. Now, I know most of our hard heads are trying to add that T. Do not add the T. So, it says, listen live, Torah Israelites, We Got Next Radio Network. Okay?
Yeah, go to the product page.
So we're going to click on that, and this is We Got Next. Now it says home, learn Paleo-Hebrew, rebuild the house of Yashar Al. Now look at that, isn't that something? These people sit there and know that it's the house of Yashar, not the house of Israel. That's very interesting. And it says products and more. Now you can click on Learn Paleo-Hebrew, or you can click on Products. Now,
yeah, let's click on Products.
If you're watching the video, do it now. Don't wait 3 days and then ask me how did you do it. It's silly for us to have a recording. Now, if you click on the Learn Paleo-Hebrew, it will take you to this page where you have the option of donating. And if you scroll down in Jubilees 12 and 26, and I opened his mouth, Son of Man, and I opened his mouth and his ears, his lips, and I began to speak with him in it. Can you pronounce that for me? I'm new.
It's probably Ibaryath or Eber, one of the others.
Right? In the tongue of the creation. So again, even in Jubilees, they're telling you, this is the language of creation. This is how come you watch all these Hollywood movies. And every time they try to show you a spell, they're using the language of creation the wrong way. On purpose. And recording it and broadcasting it, and it reaches your home. Learn these books and you'll know what these witches are trying to do to us immediately. Learn these books and you can read straight out of the original books. Learn these books and guess what? You can read the scraps of parchment and we don't have to believe the white man ever. Or just watch this video as if it's just something that's, something else, some other option for you. Now, if you go to products, more set apart products. When the money's down, there's no more food coming in. There's no more money to spend. You are the new what? You're the new grocery store meat. What are they going to do with all us black people? They're going to carve us up. Set yourself apart so it's easier for him to protect you. And you have these 911 rescue books. Now, is there a starting point that people should be interested in? Like, I want to buy a book, but I don't know if I should go for the purple one or the alphabet first, or where should I start?
I would recommend everyone go for the purple 911 Ibaryath book. It's a little bit, the international version is black and white, so the price is cheaper, much cheaper. The color is actually much cheaper too on the website compared to Amazon. So hopefully everyone will go to wegotnext.com/products and make their purchase. But you want to start, in my opinion, this is not what other people are going to tell you. My opinion is to just start with the pure Hebrew because that's what the Most High gave us.
Whoa,
right?
whoa, 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 whoa,
Okay.
whoa. Hold on for a second. It was $39 on Amazon. That says $22 down there. 22.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
but you and me just blew, man. I gotta get a towel and wipe this shit up, dude. I can't believe that. That's like 43% off, right? Something like that.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable, man. God, man, to deal with Amazon, you know, and you still make money if we buy it here, right?
It depends on if you buy the international or there's nothing really in the color. I provide the color for people who can afford the color and they want something nice. But the printing cost is very high. So if anyone's concerned about me and they want me to get something out of it, please buy the black and white.
That's the $31.99 book?
No, that's the 20 for the Ibaryath, I think it's 22. I'm not sure.
There's for each of them, there's 2 books, and some of them 2 prices.
Right. So one is color. The international is black and white. So I think the color is somewhere around $29. The international, which is black and white, is about $22.
Correct.
And then when you go to the other books, like the Learn Paleo-Hebrew, Alphabet,
Okay.
those present the Hebrew beginning from Babylonian captivity forward. So those are going to have the
middle
proper scripts, but they're going to have the.
Oh, here it is. It says on a cover early, middle, and late script.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you go for the books that have the cartoons on the cover, the Learn Paleo-Hebrew, Alphabet for mothers and daughters, and then there's another one for fathers and sons.
Oh, I see now. I didn't notice that one had a male and one had a female. I was looking at the information here, and one has 66 handwriting exercises, and one has 67 handwriting exercises. One has 67 pictographs, and one has 66 pictographs.
Right.
So I see the difference. This is dad working with the child. This is mom working with the child.
Exactly.
And I think that's pretty good. I live in a situation where I throw a lot of the education on mom, so that is something different. Like, okay, we're gonna work in my workbook today,
Exactly, and those are only $12. I think those are only $12. The black and white is only $12. I think the color. I'm not sure about what the color is for the.
Yeah, it's 12. Correct. It's $12.50 for the black and white, and it's $20.99 for the ones in color.
Yeah. So, but the key to remember is that those books that we're talking about right now, those are a mixture. So if you're a person who wants to learn how to read, for whatever reason, you want to learn how to read the books written by Jewish people.
I want 911.
If you want to learn how to read the books written by Jewish people, you would get the Learn Paleo-Hebrew for mothers and fathers, because that's going to be mixed. So what it means is this: when I say mixed, it's going to have vowels, so A-E-I-O-U.
Okay.
It's going to have V, W, and J sounds.
Okay.
Whereas the 911 book, the pure Hebrew, there's no vowel sound. There's when I say vowels, I'm talking about, like everybody knows, A, E, I, O, and U. There's no V, there's no J, there's no W. Okay, those things were completely foreign to our ancestors prior
Yeah.
to captivity.
O,
So,
O followed by U used to be the symbol for double U.
correct. So here's where that becomes very valuable for you. If you know that there's no vowels, then so when you look at the Tetragrammaton, no matter where you put the vowel, you know it's not the Most High's name because there are no vowels. So you don't have to get into a whole long discussion about anything.
Oh,
If you know,
it gets a little deeper than that, man. So when you like start looking at people's last names, like the last name Williams, and that's just a double V. And if you just get rid of the one V, it say villains, right?
right? That's right.
Right? So if you knew there wasn't no V before, so it was O-U illins, right? That's how they
Right.
used to get mad, right?
Yeah.
So, um,
But can I mention one more thing about the 911? The 911 Ibaryath, there are 770 vocabulary words. 770. Okay? There are, I think, 95 something questions, vocabulary word related questions. What else have we got?
hold on for a second. Why don't I
Okay.
get some kind of visualization when we go into this? All right. So, again, on one side, the word is city, and its translation would be IYAR. Am I doing that right? Like
I'm not sure where you're at.
600. I'm at page 56 in the third column, a little bit south of halfway down the third column.
For letter C?
Yes.
Okay.
Now you're talking my book language.
Oh, so that's ayar. I in the Hebrew, in the ancient Hebrew, it's not a vowel, it is a consonant. So we do have a consonant sound that's I.
So why don't you
But
take
it's
us?
not written as an I.
I'm sorry. I'm on this list. Why don't you take us to the word chariot and take us down a few words? Car, chariot, right below camel.
Okay.
Take us through a few of these so we kind of understand.
So if you look at chariot on page 56, the proper pronunciation in the ancient Hebrew is really, really simple. It's going to be ma-ra-kab. So ma is a letter, ra is a letter, ka is a letter, and then that b at the end, that's a letter. It would be babi. But because it's at the end, you drop the ah sound. So ma-ra-ba-ka. I'm sorry, ma-ra-kab. Okay, so the letters are ending with a, but it's a consonant. It's not a vowel. You follow me?
I do.
So the letter itself is ba, ga, da, la, etc. Or we can say na, ma.
So the vowels are being placed into, so in the marakab, the vowels are being placed to separate, the A as the vowels being placed to separate the initial consonant, right?
Well, in the ancient Hebrew, the A is the consonant. The ma, it's a consonant. It's a sound. Let's go through it. I'm going to show you what I mean.
Okay.
So maybe it'll be confusing to somebody. Because if you look at page 32.
Let's go to 32.
Right. You're going to see ancient Ibaryath. It looks like a squiggly line, like the lines on Charlie Brown's shirt.
Thunderbolt.
Yeah. It says the letter ma. So ma is a letter. Okay. It would be the equivalent of a letter, let's say, M. Right? Ma. The letter ma comes from the Ibaryath word mayam.
I'll be damned. Hey, you know, now look at that. Ma comes from Ibaryath word mayam. Now we know the Mayan word sounds close to the Maya or the Mayan, and they say the Mayan actually means mirage. Now I want you to think about something because this is fucking clever. Now, ma-yam, ma-yam means water. What's the one thing that you want when you're in the desert? Ma-yam. But if you think you see water, but you don't, it's what? An illusion. What does Maya mean? Illusion. And what did they do on the map? Now look at the Hebrew. See the trick? See the witchcraft? That is how you cross something out, isn't it? You put a straight line through it or you do a zigzag. So they crossed out. And where'd the Mayan, where'd the water people end up? Well, if you follow the structures, if you type in Mayan structures, architecture in the United States, it's in Georgia, leading up through Illinois. Ill lion, the lion is ill. That's them crossing you out and saying you were a mirage. You weren't there.
That's deep.
It's not. It's a fucking spell. It's right in front of us when we know what these words mean, based on these symbols coming from our own history. Now, this will be number 678, why the white man will be persecuted outside of heaven and will not see entrance of heaven. Because again, they knew the writing of the Mayan. They knew who the Mayan were based on what the Mayan wrote. They were there to steal and pillage and rape. That is why you have an old Mexican and you have a new Mexican. And the old Mexican looks like you. And that new Mexican looked like you with a Spanish face. That's what they did to you. We shall replace them in our heaven. But what's happening to their heaven? It's falling apart faster than my fucking teeth. But it's okay. We all do what we do and we will get what we get, right? Right. So I find this very interesting to see it for myself in front of my own face. Not somebody else showing me, just to see it. You know? So
It's a lot of stuff. I mean,
no. You can't sell me on that. If I can see and understand why they named something that I was called something mysterious, why they would put a mysterious stamp on it, then I would already clearly understanding ancient Hebrew will help me to break through more of these lies because all of their witchcraft is based on this ancient language. They can't do anything without this language. Their English falls apart without Hebrew. Hebrew is literally the spine of it, and we just don't see it that way. If you look at the things that are on, I'll just leave it at that. Clearly we learn a lot from knowing our own language, especially we didn't expect, especially about our enemy and the actions, the tangible actions of our enemies through their wicked theories.
That's right. Knowing the language and the meaning of the word is key. That's the key. You can break out of the spell with this information, as you said.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, It's here for you. It's on screen. I've had a few conversations with Mr. El Yusuf. He's a very interesting person. And now that we get into uh, the thought wars, and the thought wars coming to fruition. And when I say that, you should think about things like the book 1984. They thought of all these things that could spiral out of control, yet it seems like we're actually doing those things more off like it's a checklist, more so than someone fantasizing about what life could become under strict regime.
That's right. Would you mind if I read another scripture?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't
Okay,
mind at all.
this is in Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. Okay?
So
Now check this out.
Jeremiah chapter infinity, verse infinity.
That's right. Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8, and it reads, How do ye say, We are wise, and the Torah of Ahiah is with us? Lo, certainly the lying pen of the scribes have made it a lie. So the Most High warned us that there are going to be some things that the scribes put in the Bible that were a lie, right? Now, we know that
Like the name Rome. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Right. So when Jeremiah warned us, okay, but unless you know the Hebrew, the ancient Hebrew, you're not going to be able to identify these deceitful, intentional or unintentional, the lies. You're not going to be able to find them easily.
Intentional. No, I'm with you. Intentional. This shit's not on purpose. It's a snare.
Yeah. So this 911 rescue book is something that every Israelite and everybody who wants to have a good understanding of the scripture and the relationship with the Most High, they should have this. Because with it, you'll be able to go and do a word study and unlock the meaning of the verse, and you can uncover the lies.
I mean, for all bullshit, you can go to the museum and read the scraps right off the walls. You don't need a middleman at all. You don't need these rice paper books. You know, and like he said, if you go over here and you buy the cheap ones, all right, let's keep it real. You buy these cheap ones, the black and white ones. He gets paid. He eats. You buy the other ones, you're just buying color books. Respectfully, you get the same thing. But again, look for the ones that say international and he eats. Obviously all this is for a good reason. And obviously he has this set up that other people eat off this too. So, it's not like he's gonna be driving around in a Rolls Royce. Hey, do you have a car?
No.
That's not a bad thing. You live in a major city, so understand you're not keeping his rims clean. You're not keeping his gas tank food. You're feeding him. This is your brother that's out there publishing, and you can pick up a published book with a good meaning. Now, all of you want these Hebrew writing posters, but he's the one that's put it in a writing format that your children can learn and you can learn. When you open the 911, when you open the alphabet, there are lines for your children to write. And when you go into the rescue, the 911 rescue, the lines are thinner. It seems more of an advanced book. I'll visually show you. Here, we'll go into the alphabet book. When we go into the writing, you can see those look just like the workbooks that your children come home with. And they come home and they have what? They have these pages so that you can practice their writing. When you open up the 911 rescue, you can see my finger is thicker than one of the lines that you write on. You can see this is more of an advanced teenage or an adult writing book, and I really wouldn't break down the learning categories that way because again, this is a language that was taken from you for a specific reason. If they can write out spells and they affect you in this language, then you can write out prayers and affect them. And they don't want you to do that. Because if you can write and pray and talk to the Most High in the language that He gave you, look at how you strive to come back home. Who wouldn't accept that type of bride? So, again, we're in the age of the thought police, right? The same time we're in the age of the thought police, our foolish, ignorant people call each other tots. All spelled the same way. Now, if I take this same word, T-H-O-T, and I take it over to YouTube, it is not going to give me anything to do with the mind, is it? It's going to give me Hookerville, and what I'm going to see is our people, right?
Can I just make another point on
Yeah.
scripture? This is coming out of Malachi, just so people can know that we're not just talking about these people's intentions. It's really in the scriptures. If you look up Malachi chapter 1, verse 14, I am at the Bible Hub. Bible Hub is nice because it's going to show you a bunch of different translations. Okay, that's an interesting thing too, right? They can have so many different translations. Here's the reason why. Because the Greeks are describing things in terms of what they see, its appearance. So they're using a lot of adjectives, and that allows for them to describe things in more than one way. And if we have time later, I'll give you an example of that. Whereas in the Hebrew, okay, we're going to describe it in a concrete way as we discussed. The difference being, we can have a word, and that word may describe two different objects, right? Let's say an animal or a plant, okay? We'll give that animal and plant the same name because they have the same function. So we describe things in terms of its function or how we use it, okay? Whereas the Westerners, they describe things based upon the way it looks. So it's a very shallow way of doing things. It also gives you a lot of leeway to bend the truth or to get past the truth. Or not even deal with the truth.
The manipulation of an image to make it look fresher than it could be or older than it truly is.
Exactly. So that's how they're doing it. So when we look at Malachi 1, verse 14, this is a motivation of why when we consider Jeremiah 8:8 about the lies that the scribes, listen to this one. Now this is coming out of the New International Version. It says, "Cursed is the cheat who has an acceptable male in his flock and vows to give it, but then sacrifices a blemished animal to the Lord, for I am a great king." Now notice this. It says, "I am the Almighty, and my name is to be feared." The other translations say, "My name is to be dreaded among the nations." So if the nations dread or fear the Most High's name, obviously they're going to take it out, right? So that's why you have so much confusion about the Most High's name. Really interesting point, for me, at least.
I hear.
So that's the motivation, that they don't want to hear the Most High's name.
Right.
So they replaced it.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up here. You want to give that example of the action in the Greek, that you talked about a second ago?
The action. Oh, scripture. I don't remember the scripture right now. But here's an example. You could say the king, the reigning king. Okay, the verb expression. We would say the reigning king.
Okay.
But then in Hebrew, everything has action. So the noun would be the king who is reigning. Whereas in English, or the Western languages, the Greek languages, the verb has action, and then the noun has no action. It's just static. But for us, it has action. Everything has action. So that's a really important point, especially like when you deal with people regarding the name. Some people will say the name is not Heya or Aheya because it's a verb, and all of that stuff that we've all heard. But they don't know the Hebrew because all Hebrew words have action. So if you just know this basic point, it can save you a whole bunch of wasted research hours, debates, and arguments and frustration with people because they don't know the Hebrew.
It seems like you're talking about syntax.
Yeah, exactly.
So if it's not written in Shakespearean, which is syntax, then it's a corrupted sentence written by another people's or a ignorant person that doesn't realize that he has to formulate the sentence in a different way, not based off what he knows, based off what he's trying to what do you call
He's trying to force it to fit because he's looking at it from a Western perspective.
Counterfeit.
Right.
He's not counterfeited. Counterfeited. Nah, fuck it. He's not faking it because he can't say it. Write it the way they would have spoken it and written.
Right. So all nouns are action words. They have action in Hebrew. In English and the Western languages, the nouns don't have action.
It's just a title.
Yeah.
Right, because these people go nuts over fucking titles. So they're also to show this is their praise. Their praise is through these titles. This is why they took our titles, and this is why they add all these fucking words that are meaningless, because they've attributed or they have allowed somebody to attribute themselves by creation of some of these stupid ass words, whether they be names, titles, or objects. This is why some languages don't have words that translate. They have to borrow words from other places. If you hear someone speak about in another language and they say out of nowhere, they say in English, turn signal, and then start talking to their language again, it's because they have no word for turn signal because it didn't derive from them. It wasn't started for them.
Yeah, they can't even relate to it. It's a totally different paradigm. So they, like you said, they have to borrow the word. I have another interesting one, if you want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a Hebrew word called ayal, and it means strong leader. Okay, so it's used for two different things. It's the name of a deer stag and also the name of the oak tree. Now, the deer stag is one of the strongest animals in the forest, according to our ancestors. So we call it a strong leader among the animals. The oak tree has one of the hardest woods amongst all the trees in the forest. So we call it a strong leader among the trees. So it has the same name. Why? Because it has the same function or similar function. Where the deer stag is very strong, a strong leader, strongest amongst the animals of the forest, and the wood is the hardest. So we use the same word. But of course, in English, they don't do that. And this is the last example I'll give you. And for whatever reason, this is one of my favorite examples. When you think about an ox, right? We always hear about an ox when we read the scriptures. We name these things, these animals and objects, right, based upon their function, not their appearance. Okay. So when we talk about a lead ox, it's Allah. When we talk about a plow ox, it's shar. When we talk about the ox of the field, it's a bakar. And when we talk about an ox of the threshing floor, it's called a par.
Can you
So it's still an ox, different function.
can you start that over again?
Okay.
And a little bit louder. When you gave the first and second word, you said them kind of low. I don't know if the viewer is going to hear those.
Okay. I was just trying to show, to demonstrate that in ancient Hebrew, our ancestors, and it would be nice if we all, wouldn't it be nice if we all learn this language and we began to talk to each other in our national language, if we did it. But the point I was trying to demonstrate is this. In Hebrew, you can use, well, we use one word for
The noun,
one object,
the noun of action. Yeah,
yeah,
I just think you gave those words. You said
too fast.
too low.
Okay, I'll do it again.
Oh, you
So
were
an
able to hear
ox.
that? I tried to say it so you could barely hear me, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So an ox, a lead ox, is called an alat. The plow ox is called a shar.
A
The
shar?
ox of the shar, S-H-A-R, shar.
Say the first. Al what?
The lead ox
Yeah.
is called alat.
Alat. L-A-L-A-T.
I'm sorry, A-L-A-T.
Like the goddess, Alat.
Yeah, some people will put an H on it.
Okay.
Some people will say A-L-A-P-H, right? It's the lead ox. Then there's the shar, which is the plow ox. Then there's the bakar, B-A-Q-A-R, which is the ox of the field. Then there's the par, P-A-R, which is the ox of the threshing floor. So it's an ox, but the name depends on its function.
Right.
Right. And so functions, when we describe functions, we're talking about verbs because, usage, doing something. So that's very different from the Western
where
world.
verb is the action.
Yeah, and they're talking of, when they describe something, it's going to be based upon appearance.
So
and the noun is just static. It doesn't move.
As the viewer can see, everything is reversed. Them that turn it all upside down. This isn't even fucking creative. It's just reversed. I will put a stupid fucking peoples over you and drive you to fucking madness at how goddamn stupid they fucking are. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it. He's schooled the shit out of us. He opened some shit to the right place that made the right sense to even what we are studying outside of language, other cultures that we believe we are. Right here in our face. It's obvious we're obviously meant to talk to him, right? So if you're interested in his book, we got next. Not next. We got next.com products or learn to speak Hebrew. Again, both of these are on this page and both lead to the products. All right. If you want to go to products, great. If you want to purchase, great. If you want to learn Hebrew, great, because there's plenty of people out there that do practice and they've gotten far, no offense, without these books. You're starting up, your child's starting up. These are great for you to use because, again, they're right in front of you. You can put together lessons if you want, but they're right in front of you. All right. Anything you want to add, Yusuf?
Yeah, everybody's invited. If you want, we're putting together
Party!
a 8-week course.
My bad.
Okay.
We just like to party all the time. We just like to party. We party people. Yeah. This is America. I'm brainwashed, man. We're all brainwashed, My bad. So again, he's talking about the 8-week course. Sorry.
Yeah, we're putting together a free 8-week course. Everybody's invited to attend, and it's academic, more academic type of style. Not going to focus on any doctrine or anything like that.
That's how they get you. My bad. My bad. I wasn't talking about the free shit. I like grouping together and practicing Hebrew. That's how they get you back on the path of being Hebrew.
Yeah, just come in and learn the language. Everybody's welcome to take the course. If you're interested, the email address is info@wegotnext.com. 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 Put in the subject box information if you just want information, or put enroll if you want to enroll.
Okay, so it's just info@wegotnext.com, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so if you put it on the screen like I had it up here the whole time, we got next. All you got to do is put info at and then copy. Go to your email address and start a new tab, right? And you're going to email them. And in the email, you're going to write, what, 1 or 2 things? Hi, thanks for doing this for us. I'm not interested. I am interested, and I want the 8 weeks. What are you going to write? I'm going to write, I'm a cheap Jew. I'm taking all the free shit. You got any bookmarkers? I'm just joking. What do you want them to write?
They can just put whatever they want to express, but just put in the subject box, put either information. Okay, so, but if you want to enroll, if you already know you want to enroll, put enroll, because I'm taking a roster of people who want to enroll, and then I'm going to give you the information, etc.
Kind of so you can base when you're going to have the start off and all that?
I'm hoping like in 2 weeks, within 2 weeks. That's my goal. I don't want to give a firm date yet because I'm not totally prepared with the daily lesson times and everything.
Right.
But once I get that together, then I'm going to do it. That's why I want everybody to email me so that I could send them over the information.
Right. Good. See, it's good that a guy like you's in control of that. My class would start at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. Get out of bed, man. Eat your bowl of rice. Start your kickboxing, man. Start your breathing. All right, people. You've heard him. You've heard why he made it. You heard who he made it for and what they can do with it. Ladies and gentlemen, the choice is yours. Everybody say bye. Okay, I'll say
Thanks very much, Lex. I enjoyed it.
Oh, no, you stay on the phone, man.
Useful.
You stay on the phone, man.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.